You ever have one of those weeks where by Sunday you're just completely done? And you're not even necessarily tired, just, I have reached my decision making quota for the entire week. Please leave me the hell alone. Because that's kind of where I'm at right now. This week has been a nightmare, and eventually you get that little window. Everyone's settled down, nothing is actively on fire. You've got maybe 2 hours where no one needs anything from you. And you think to yourself, awesome, I'm going to find something to watch. Beautiful, simple. Except now I have to pick what to watch. And Joe's, apparently that is too much to ask of me right now because I open Netflix, or Hulu, or Peacock, or Paramount. Whatever streaming service currently has custody of the thing that I want to watch. And immediately I'm being interrogated. Trending now. New releases. Because you watched this. Because you watched that. We think you'll like this. Do you want a thriller? A comedy? A documentary? Here's an 8-episode limited series everyone says is incredible. Oh, cool. What's it about? Well, I don't know. Now I've got to watch a trailer. Maybe check Rotten Tomatoes. Maybe give it a Google. Now I'm reading reviews. Some dude named Movie Lord 1987 says the second act completely falls apart. Well, shit. 20 minutes ago, I just wanted to relax. Now, apparently, I'm conducting due diligence. And eventually, I hit that point where my brain kind of goes, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to watch The Thing again. And that's the weird part, because I've seen The Thing a lot. I know what happens, I know who's going where, I know when shit is about to go horribly wrong. I know that at some point, Wilford Brimley is going to lose his mind. There is zero mystery here. And yet, the second that movie starts, something strange happens. My shoulders come down, my brain shuts the hell up, and we're good, which kinda got me thinking. Why? Because we're always chasing that new thing, right? Brand new movies, brand new video games, brand new shows. Everyone's got a backlog longer than the CVS receipts. I've got stuff I genuinely want to sit down and watch, and somehow when life has thoroughly kicked me in the balls, I'm sitting here voluntarily watching a movie where I already know where every single thing that's going to happen. And I know I can't be the only one. Everyone's got one. Maybe yours isn't John Carpenter's The Thing. Maybe it's The Lord of the Rings, theatrical or extended. Or maybe it's Back to the Future. Or maybe it's The Office, or Parks and Recreation, or Friends, or the entire Star Wars franchise. Maybe you've played the same video game 12 times while 6 unopened games sit in your library staring at you like, seriously, dude? Resident Evil 4 again? Yes, RE4 yet again. Mind your business. But here's what I couldn't stop thinking about. Stories are supposed to work because we don't know what happens next. That's tension, suspense, discovery. That's kind of the whole damn trick. So why does knowing exactly what's going to happen sometimes make the experience so much better? Why, after a terrible day or weekend or apparently an entire week, do we go looking for stories that can't surprise us anymore? And maybe the better question is, what exactly are we going back there to find? Yeah, I kind of fell down a rabbit hole. It's time to talk about comfort rewatches. Hey, and welcome to, or welcome back to, the Average Joe Nerdcast. I'm Nate, your resident Average Joe, chronic overthinker, professional rewatcher, and apparently a man who needs emotional support movies nowadays. And if you're new here, welcome to the show. And if you've been riding shotgun for a while, then you know the deal. Make sure you're following the show wherever you're listening. And be sure to leave a 5-star rating or review if you've got just a quick second. And make sure you're subscribed and smash that bell over on YouTube. And then be sure to come hang out with us over in the lobby on Discord. All right, now, I've apparently decided to cope with my week by investigating my own viewing habits. So let's do this. Because here's the part that doesn't make sense. We generally treat not knowing what happens as one of the fundamental ingredients of storytelling. Just think about how protective we are of spoilers. A movie comes out Friday, and by Saturday morning, the entire internet has turned into a minefield. Spoiler warning! Don't open the comments. Don't look at Reddit. Don't click that thumbnail. Some jackass over on TikTok has already put the third act reveal in 12-point text directly over the main character's face. Because knowing what happens is supposed to diminish the experience. Right? Except apparently, there's a loophole. Because once we love something, we will voluntarily spoil it for ourselves hundreds of times. No one sits down for their 20th viewing of Jurassic Park thinking, man, I wonder if they get the power back on. No one fires up Return of the King going, Frodo better pull this shit off this time. I've watched Aliens enough times that if Ripley suddenly said, you know what, Hicks? Actually, let's not go back for Newt. I'd probably stand up in my living room going, whoa, the fuck is this? Get back in there. We have a schedule to keep. And that's when I started wondering if the predictability isn't a flaw in comfort media. Maybe it's the entire feature. Because there's something incredibly relaxing about entering a story where your brain already has the map. You don't have to learn anyone's name. You don't have to figure out who's secretly working for who. You don't have to remember which kingdom hates which kingdom because someone's great-grandfather stole a dragon egg 400 years ago. You don't have to turn and keep asking player 2, wait a minute, who's that? And then immediately get pissed when she says, I don't know, babe, I'm watching the same movie you are. Fair. That's totally fair. With something familiar, all of that work is already done. You know the characters, the world, the rules, and more importantly, you know where the bad parts are. And not bad as in shitty, bad as in stressful. You know when the monster's coming. You know when someone dies. You know when the big emotional gut punch is supposed to happen. Your brain doesn't have to sit there going, oh no, oh no, oh no, what's about to happen? Because you already know. And there actually seems to be something to this. Researchers have spent years looking at why people deliberately revisit entertainment they've already experienced. And one of the ideas that keeps popping up is pretty simple. Familiar experiences require less uncertainty. There's less information to process, less prediction, less figuring shit out. Which made me immediately look back at this week and go, oh, there it is. Because after spending however many hours dealing with real-life nonsense where I don't know what's going to happen next, why would I necessarily want my relaxation to also be, surprise, motherfucker? Maybe tonight, I just don't need a mystery. Maybe I need Kurt Russell. Because I know Kurt Russell in John Carpenter's The Thing. I know McReady. McReady and I have an arrangement. He's going to fly that helicopter. Someone's going to shoot at a dog. Everyone's going to make increasingly terrible decisions. And Wilford Brimley is going to lose his shit. And eventually, we're going to have ourselves a deeply uncomfortable evening in Antarctica. I've been here before. I know the exits. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized we do this with way more than movies. Comfort TV shows might be an even better example. People will watch The Office from beginning to end, finish it, and then just start it over again. Now that's psychotic behavior if you describe it objectively. Hey dude, what are you watching? The same exact 74 hours of television that I just finished. Why? Because I like these people. Fair enough. And video games do it too. I have access to more video games right now than 12-year-old me could have comprehended. Game Pass alone would have killed that kid. Just instantly. They'd find me lying in front of my Xbox like I stared directly into the Ark of the Covenant. And what do? Halo. Again, I know where the enemies spawn. I know where the weapons are. I know the music cues. I know exactly what happens. And that familiarity doesn't necessarily make it boring. Sometimes it makes it feel like coming home. But that created yet another problem for me, because if removing uncertainty is all we're doing, then comfort rewatches should eventually become background noise, right? You'd think the 100th viewing would give you less than the first, except sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you notice something you've never seen before, a look, a line, something happening in the background, a little piece of foreshadowing that meant absolutely nothing the first time through. And suddenly the movie you've already seen isn't exactly the same movie anymore, which means maybe knowing what happens doesn't end the discovery. Maybe it just changes what we're looking for. So once you already know what happens, something weird happens to the way you watch. The very first time you see a movie or show, the plot is basically dragging you around by the collar. Come on, we gotta go. What happens next? You're trying to keep up. Who is this? Why did he do that? Is that guy dead? Wait, is that guy the bad guy? Oh shit! Oh shit! And if the movie or show's doing its job, you're not necessarily thinking about how any of it was made. You're just along for the ride. But the second time? Or the third? 37th time, because apparently you have absolutely no intention of broadening your horizons, the plot can't distract you anymore. You know where we're going, so you start looking out the windows. And that's when you start seeing all the tiny little details. Take Terminator 2, for instance. The first time you watch T2, you're watching Arnold Schwarzenegger fight a liquid metal murder machine from the future. And that's a pretty compelling sales pitch. No one walked out of T2 in 91 going, yeah, that motorcycle chase was cool, but did you notice the subtle evolution of Sarah Connor's body language? No. You were probably going, holy shit, he reloaded the shotgun by flipping it? Because you, just like me, are normal people. But when you've seen T2 as many times as I have, now you're watching Sarah. You're watching the way she reacts to the T800. You're watching John slowly turn this machine into something that almost resembles a person. You're catching callbacks, setups, little expressions, tiny little moments that you either didn't notice the first time or couldn't possibly understand yet because you didn't know where the story was going. And suddenly you're not watching to find out what happens. You're watching how it happens. Same thing with Alien. First time through, there's a fucking alien on the spaceship. That's the problem. Pretty straightforward. Please remove the alien. Preferably immediately. But once you know what's coming, now you can watch Ash. And suddenly little things start to feel different. Why is he reacting that way? Why is he making that decision? Why does this dude seem to have the bedside manner of a haunted printer? You already know. So now you're watching the performance knowing something the characters don't. And that completely changes the scene. Or Predator. First viewing, big invisible alien hunting Arnold and his collection of human refrigerators. Awesome. No notes. But watch it enough times and you start appreciating how deliberately that movie dismantles the exact kind of action movie it pretends to be at the very beginning. These dudes roll into the jungle looking like someone entered a cheat code for unlimited testosterone, and none of that matters. By the end of the film, Dutch is covered in mud fighting an alien with sticks and rocks. And that's hilarious when you really think about it. The movie spends its opening act going, look at these absolute badasses, and then spends the rest of the runtime taking all of their toys away. And that's the stuff that I appreciate more now because I'm not worried about whether Dutch survives anymore. I know he does. I'm watching the construction. It's almost like the first viewing gives you the story, and every subsequent viewing after that lets you start taking the thing apart. And not in the shitty CinemaSins way where we're freeze framing a coffee cup and going, ding, continuity error, movie ruined. I mean, appreciating the craft. Why does that scene work? Why does that line hit? Why did the composer bring that theme back right at that moment? Or why did the director hold on to that shot for just 2 extra seconds? Why does this dumb little character interaction make me smile every single time? And sometimes you will find something new, which shouldn't be possible because you've seen the movie. The information has been sitting there the entire time, but maybe you finally notice someone's reaction in the background. Maybe you understand a line differently. Maybe you finally catch some foreshadowing. Or maybe you just suddenly appreciate a performance that 12-year-old you couldn't have given less of a shit about. Because 12-year-old you had priorities. 12-year-old me wasn't sitting around thinking about Sarah Connor's trauma. I was waiting for Arnold to shoot something. Where's the minigun? Can we get back to the minigun? And that's another part of this I hadn't really considered. Because we've been talking about movies changing once you know what happens, but the movie isn't changing. The disc sitting on my shelf didn't sneak out at night and install a firmware update. T2 is still very much T2. Alien is still Alien. Predator is still Predator. I'm different. And I think that's why certain movies can somehow grow with us. You watch something when you're 10 and connect with one character, watch it again at 20, and suddenly someone else makes more sense. Then you're pushing 40 and you're sitting there going, wait a minute, the exhausted dad was right all along. Oh shit, I've crossed over. Because your life experiences come into the movie with you. Being a parent changes what you notice. Losing someone changes what you notice. Or falling in love, getting your heart broken, having a job that you truly hate, having a job that you truly love, or just simply getting older. Realizing your knees make sounds when you stand up that should probably be investigated by someone with a medical degree. All of that comes with you, which means there's this bizarre possibility that you can watch the exact same movie 20 years apart and technically have two different experiences. And that kind of got me thinking about the movies that I always keep coming back to. Because maybe I'm not always returning just because they're good movies. Maybe there's another reason certain stories become our stories. Why this movie? Why this game? Why this show? Out of everything we've experienced, why are there a handful of them that feel different? Why can the opening notes of a soundtrack suddenly put you somewhere you haven't been in 20 years? Why can an Xbox startup screen make a grown-ass adult briefly feel 12 again? Why does some random movie that you've watched 100 times occasionally hit you in a place you weren't expecting? And that's where this rabbit hole got a little more personal than I intended. Because maybe we're not just rewatching the movie. Maybe we're rewatching ourselves. And that thought stuck with me. Because everyone has media that feels attached to a very specific point in their life. And sometimes it's not even your favorite movie of all time, and that's the weird part. There are movies I probably think are objectively better than some of the stuff I consider comfort media. But they don't have the same, I don't know, gravity. They don't pull me back in the same exact way, and I started wondering if that's because certain movies and games and shows don't just contain their own stories anymore. After enough time, they begin to contain some of ours too. Just think about a game you played constantly as a kid. You boot it up today, same menu, same music, same sound effects, and suddenly you're somewhere else. And not literally, obviously. I'm not claiming the Halo menu is a fucking TARDIS. But for just a second, you can remember the room, the TV. You remember who you played it with. You remember sitting way too close to the screen because apparently eyesight was a resource we were willing to spend. Maybe you remember the smell of your childhood home. or what you ate, what summers felt like, things you weren't consciously trying to remember, but they're just there, attached to it. And that's when the best comparison I could come up with hit me. Maybe some of this stuff becomes a save file. Not a literal time machine, because that's just not how life works. You can't actually go back. I can't load up Halo Combat Evolved and suddenly it's 2001 again. I can't hit continue and wake up as 13-year-old Nate. And frankly, 13-year-old Nate would probably take one look at adult me and go, "Holy shit, we have tattoos?" "Yeah, buddy. Do we have a cool car?" "We have a truck." "Dude, are we rich?" We should probably change the subject. But that old save file is still there. Not literally the life, but the feeling. And certain things can load pieces of it. Hell, sometimes it's something unbelievably stupid. You hear the startup sound from an old video game console and your brain immediately goes, "I know this place." And for a second, there's this weird overlap. You're sitting there as the person you are now while also remembering exactly what it felt like to be the person you were then. And to me, that's incredibly powerful. And I don't think I appreciated that when I was younger. Because when you're a kid, you don't know you're creating nostalgia. You're just having a regular Tuesday. And that's the cruel little trick. No one taps you on the shoulder and says, "Hey kid, you should pay attention. 25 years from now, you're going to desperately wish you could experience this exact afternoon just one more time. You're just pissed because your mom says dinner's ready and you haven't hit a checkpoint just yet. You don't know that someday the shitty little bedroom you're sitting in is going to become a place that only exists in your memory. You don't know that the people sitting beside you won't always be there. You don't know that this particular version of your life has an expiration date. Because of course it does. Every version does. And I don't mean that in some doom and gloom, everyone's going to die, so stare off into the sunset kind of way. I mean, life keeps moving. That's just what it does. Your houses change, your friend groups change, your families change. Hell, even you change. But somehow the movie doesn't. And that's the really bizarre part. I can turn Terminator 2 on right this second. And there he is. Same Arnold, same Harley, same shotgun. That movie has been sitting still for 35 years. While I haven't. And maybe that's part of why revisiting something years later can hit you so differently. Because you're not only seeing the story again, you're seeing the distance that you've traveled since the last time you were there. And sometimes that's wonderful. It's funny. Sometimes it's bittersweet as all hell. And sometimes you realize, man, I miss that version of my life. And sometimes you realize, Jesus Christ, I am so glad I am not that guy anymore. That's the other side of nostalgia that we don't talk about nearly enough. Not every old save file needs to be restored. Some of those motherfuckers were corrupted. So just leave them there. But you can still look at them. And sometimes that's just enough. I think that's why I don't completely buy the idea that rewatching old stuff is automatically refusing to move forward. Can it become that? Sure. We've talked plenty around here about nostalgia getting weird when someone decides the only good things humanity ever created happened between the ages of 8 and 17. That's different. I'm talking about visiting. There's a difference between visiting home and just refusing to leave it. And maybe comfort media lets us visit. For 2 hours, for an episode, for just one level. You get to sit with something that truly mattered to you. Maybe remember someone, maybe remember yourself, and then you get to come back. Because here's the thing that really got me. If T2 means something different to me now than it did when I was a kid, then 20 years from now, it might mean something completely different all over again. There are probably movies I'm watching with my kids right now that I don't even realize are becoming save files. There are probably stupid little nights that just don't feel super important whatsoever. Eating pizza on the couch, some movie everyone's half watching, some joke that makes the entire room lose it. Nothing really cinematic, there's no swelling music in reality, and no narrator sitting me down and telling me, hey, dipshit, remember this. Just life. And someday, maybe I'll hear that movie start, and I'll just remember the room. That's the part I wasn't expecting when I started asking why I just keep watching the same stuff over and over again. Because I thought this episode was going to be about familiarity and psychology and why our brains sometimes want something predictable. And sure, that's definitely a part of it. But I think there's another reason we keep certain stories around. They're landmarks. You can look at them and remember exactly where you were when you first passed through. And just every once in a while, you can go back. Not because you think you can stay there, just because it's nice to see the place again. But maybe that's only half of what comfort media is really doing, because sometimes we're not reaching backwards at all. Sometimes the old thing isn't helping us remember yesterday. Sometimes it's just helping us get through today. And maybe that's the version of this that I needed this weekend, because real life does not give two shits about your plans. You can have the whole weekend mapped out. I'm going to get this done. We're going to do this. I'll have time for that. And then life walks through the front door carrying a folding chair like it's the goddamn WWE. Surprise, motherfucker. There goes Saturday. There goes Sunday. And now it's Sunday night, and you're looking at Monday like, didn't I just do one of these? That's the part we don't get to control. You don't know what tomorrow's going to look like. You don't know when the phone's going to ring. You don't know when someone's going to need something from you. And you definitely don't know when work is going to suddenly become a shit show. You just don't know. And that's life. And most of the time, it's completely okay. Some of the best things that ever happened to us are things that we never see coming. But uncertainty is still exhausting, especially when you've had just a little too much of it. And that's when I think the comfort movie becomes something just a little different. Because Alien can't surprise me anymore. The Nostromo will receive the distress signal. They're still going to LV 426. And Kane is going to stick his face directly over the giant alien egg because apparently OSHA did not survive into the 22nd century. Something is going to attach itself to his face, and Ripley is going to make the completely reasonable suggestion, hey guys, maybe we don't bring the guy with the nightmare spider attached to his skull inside the spaceship. And everyone's going to ignore her. Again, every single time. I've watched this movie repeatedly, and not once has Dallas ever gone, hey, you know what, Ripley? Excellent point. Quarantine procedure exists for a reason. How about we leave Kane outside? Nope. Same terrible decision. Every single time. And there's something weirdly comforting about that. Not Kane getting face hugged. No, that's generally considered a negative. It's that for the next few hours, I know all the rules. For 2 whole hours, the only problem I have is there's a xenomorph on this fucking spaceship. Great. I can definitely work with that. And honestly, that feels manageable. And maybe that's why calling these things comfort movies always sounded a little strange to me. Because some of mine aren't exactly comforting. The Thing is about a group of increasingly paranoid men trapped in Antarctica with an organism that can perfectly imitate them. An Alien is basically, what if your workplace was already terrible? And then there was a monster. Terminator 2 features nuclear annihilation. Aliens is 2.5 hours of, oh god, oh fuck, oh god, oh fuck! Not exactly a warm blanket and a cup of tea, and yet, they are truly comforting to me. Because comfort doesn't necessarily mean the story itself is comfortable. Maybe it just means familiar. I know this place, I know these people, I've been here before. And unlike real life, this story has edges. It begins here, and it ends there. The problem will reveal itself. The characters will deal with it. Credits roll. And real life does not have credits. Sometimes shit just keeps going. There's no convenient scene where someone explains what the last 3 days were about. No third act where everything suddenly clicks into place. No John Williams score letting you know, hey, buddy, this is the part where everything starts getting better. Sometimes it's just Sunday, and the weekend sucked, and tomorrow you've got shit to do. So maybe you just put on the movie, just because tonight you'd like to spend a couple of hours somewhere you know the layout. And I think that's enough, which is funny, because I started this entire thing asking why do we keep watching the same stuff over and over? And honestly, I don't think there's just one answer. Sometimes our brains are tired and familiarity asks less from us. Sometimes knowing the plot lets us finally appreciate everything happening underneath it. And sometimes we come back 20 years later and discover the movie stayed exactly where we left it. But we didn't. Sometimes we're visiting an old version of ourselves, and sometimes life has just been kicking your ass. And you just need Ellen Ripley to be right about quarantine protocol for the 400th fucking time. That's allowed too. So before I get out of here, huge shout out as always to My Player 2 for putting up with me disappearing down yet another rabbit hole, because apparently I can't just watch a movie anymore without eventually asking, but why does my brain like this? And a huge shout out to all of you for riding shotgun with me. Seriously, whether you've been here forever or you just found this weird little corner of the internet, sincerely thank you for spending part of your day with me. And I want to hear yours. What's your comfort rewatch? Movie, TV show, video game, hell, throw a book in there. What's the thing you go back to when life has thoroughly kicked you in the dick and you just want to be somewhere familiar? Head over to Discord and tell me in the lobby. I genuinely want to know. Because after spending this entire episode thinking about it, I think I'm going to take my own advice. I'm going to finish this episode, get everything ready for Monday, and then maybe I'm going to put something on that I've already seen way too many times. No scrolling for 45 minutes, no trailers, no reviews, no trying to optimize my entertainment like I'm picking a health insurance policy. Just something familiar. And maybe you've got one too. That movie you know by heart, that show you've restarted 5 times, or that game where your hands somehow still remember the controls even though you haven't touched it in years. Maybe you don't need anything new tonight. Maybe you just need somewhere familiar for just a little while. Because I don't think comfort media is necessarily about refusing to move forward. You still have to move forward. Monday is still coming, and the world is still waiting. Life doesn't let us reload the old save files, but every once in a while, maybe it's okay to visit an old save point before you keep playing. Take the health, check your inventory, listen to the music for just a minute, then keep going. I've been Nate, and this has been the Average Joe Nerdcast. Take care of yourselves, and take care of each other. And as always, stay gold, nerd bold. And I'll see you on the next one.
Game over.